I'm meteorologist Carley Gomez bringing you the latest updates on Hurricane Hilary. As of about 8:30 p.m. on Thursday, we have now started seeing Hilary strengthening, very close now to a Category 4 hurricane. About 125-mile-per-hour winds sustained there, but we're about 4 miles per hour away from that Category 4 storm, expected to be that hurricane overnight as a Category 4 into early Friday morning. As we continue tracking, much of Hilary's movement here continues to shift toward the northwest and continuing to shift north after that. You're pretty much going to see about a 24-hour event at a Category 4 hurricane as it continues to slow its movement just a little bit, intensifying and strengthening into warm water. Moving into your Friday night, still a 4, and it's expected at this point to begin making its way toward the Baja California Peninsula as a 4, then finally dropping down to a 3, potentially here on Saturday, 6 p.m., as winds begin to slow, making its way just slightly over that small little peninsula there off of Baja California. And then right as of now, keeps going back and forth on whether or not we're going to see Hilary as a Category 1 making landfall over into California, or whether or not we're going to continue to see it as a tropical storm. Regardless of the category, the big impacts here are going to be rainfall, and it's going to be a big issue along with the winds for so many people, millions in the Southern California area. Let's talk about its track as well as the rainfall totals it's expected to bring. Now, the actual eye or the center of the storm system isn't necessarily what we're worried about. It's the outer bands that begin to move in first. And what we see with this is first about a 1 to 2 inches of rain moving into Sunday morning. If it's still going to be just a little south of California and San Diego there, making its way just into the center here of the state in Southern California. These are just the outer bands of the system. Finally, we expect to start seeing more of that rain becoming heavy by the evening and overnight hours. So far, the current projection for it making landfall and moving into Southern California is right about here, and that's where we expect it closer to about 6 p.m. or so. Now, this is just preliminary estimates as we are still at Thursday. This is expected to arrive Sunday evening, so we're still tracking improvements for this track to continue, as well as the potential for computer models to change. Looking at a lot of this rain here, anywhere from 3 to 5 inches potentially expected before the system is set to veer toward the northeast, toward areas of southern Arizona into much of Nevada, expecting to see the influence there of all that rain, about 2 inches or so. But most hit parts here are going to be right into areas near Tijuana, along the border there, into Southern California and San Diego. Now, additional rain is expected. Again, remember the outer bands of this system will continue to circulate around Southern California for half the day, bringing in some heavy rain for areas of Orange County and northern San Diego. You can see that there, about 3 inches potentially expected before it moves its way up toward the mountains there, bringing in as much as about 4 inches of rain. So heavy rain, short amount of time. This is a time to prepare, bring things in, as well as prepare to even pick up sandbags if need be. Let's talk about the hurricane formation. A lot goes into it, and whether or not we're actually going to see it make landfall as a hurricane. And what are the elements needed here? Well, let's talk about this. You need unstable air. The temperatures cool as they rise with height, creating unstable conditions because the water's warm, but then it gets cooler right above that. Now it's creating the billowing effect of the clouds. The clouds continue to move up with height, leading to what's called convection. It's a vertical motion. You often see it with thunderstorms the afternoon hours, if you're familiar with that. And then you see more clouds forming into thunderstorms. Now, most layers at about 15,000 feet are necessary for continued thunderstorm activity within the potential to move into a tropical depression and storm system. Now, the velocity of the winds must not change significantly with the height. What we're looking at here is the rotation, where you start to see the low pressure moving and strengthening and creating what's called that eye of the hurricane you hear about. But what we mostly need here to continue generating this system is 80-degree temperature and higher. This is why we call them tropical warm water out there. And what we're continuing to see right now is it's moving and hugging along the coastline of Mexico, because that's where all the warm water is currently sitting. The ocean temperatures have to remain above 80 to supply enough energy to sustain that storm system. When you get all the ingredients, you start to develop a tropical depression. We've already seen that happening with Hilary. She's way past that at this point, but it's just an organized cloud system with thunderstorms that circulates but less than 38-mile-per-hour winds. Then we move to the next step, the tropical storm. We saw that just about a day ago or so. And that's continuing to move around here, but 39 to 73. Now you get to a Category 1 hurricane at 74-mile-per-hour winds, and then you just only increase that category from there. You continue to start seeing that swirling motion happening and then start getting a more well-defined eye of the hurricane once you increase those wind speeds. Now, we do anticipate Hilary becoming a Category 4. She is currently at about 125-mile-per-hour winds sustained, just shy there of hitting the 130 mark, which we do expect to happen within the next few hours. And that Category 4 is expected to remain in place for at least 24 hours. Oftentimes, the bigger the category, the slower the movement. The winds are speeding up, but the actual movement of the hurricane begins to slow down. It's starting to pull everything into its motion and really taking on all the heat it can from that water below. Now, why isn't Hilary moving just like the rest, moving like Fernanda, like Greg, like Dora that caused the Maui strong winds and, of course, the Maui fires that we've heard about, so devastating there. But all of these storm systems have moved west out to sea, but they are seeking warm water. That's usually where you find it, around Hawaii, Central Pacific. But now that all these storm systems and the parade of them have moved on, they've been creating what's called upwelling, bringing in water from the depths up to the surface, creating now cold water around Fernanda, cold water around Greg. Now that's just a low pressure system. All that cold water, Hilary does not like. She's looking and searching for the warmth. That is where she follows Baja California and the coastline of Mexico, hugging the coast there to find the warm temperatures. As we take a closer look, well, the temperatures are warm. We're looking around 85, 84-degree temperatures, and even warmer there as you get closer to that inlet of Cabo San Lucas. There is on the outside, but right in that inlet, 87-degree temperatures. I mean, it is so warm. You go out a little bit further, notice it gets a little lighter, 80 degrees there. It doesn't want to see any more 80s. It wants a little warmer. So it's staking right close to Mexico and going to continue its movement up north as it makes its way toward the U.S. and Southern California. Now, as we currently take a look at the storm system, that eye continues to become more well-defined, and we do anticipate that Category 4 hurricane to start making its way closer to Southern California in the next 48 to 72 hours.